Well, poppy harvesting and opium production are big business in Afghanistan, fueling 1/3 of that country's economy. But a new report from Canada's Centre for International Governance Innovation says a plan to legalize the opium system for medical uses is seriously flawed. And joining us this morning from Kitchener is the Afghanistan expert with the Centre for International Governance, Mark Sedra. Mark, thank you for joining us this morning. Why are you so opposed to this proposal?
Well, there's three main reasons. To have a licensing system in Afghanistan, you would have to have a state with the capacity to regulate that system throughout the country. Well, as we know, the Afghan state still does not reach into the remotest areas of the country, still is not strong enough to provide effective law enforcement around the country. Second of all, the basic assumption is behind this proposal is that there is a market demand for opiates to create painkillers such as codeine and morphine, primarily in the developing world. The reality is there is a need for this, but there's not a market demand. There is a need for development assistance and so on that could create that market demand for these areas. But right now there is actually a surplus of such opiates that would be able to provide what's needed, what the market demands at this stage.
And when you talk about this surplus, Mark, where is this poppy production, in what countries is it happening?
Well, primarily areas like Turkey and India, where you see that the trade is heavily regulated. Why these countries have been able to do this is they have, of course, very strong states, very strong law enforcement agencies that are able to control it. In Afghanistan, you really lack those elements, and so in essence, you could establish a licensing system, but it doesn't mean that the illegal trade, where there's still a huge demand, will necessarily diminish. So you might have some legal production, which would be very difficult to regulate, and then alongside it, you would still have farmers who would be seeking to produce such opiates for the illegal market, which would be immensely profitable.
I guess the question is, you know, poppy production, 1/3 of the Afghan economy, obviously huge business, as we mentioned earlier. How do you stop farmers from growing this stuff?
Well, really, to be honest, it's going to take time, and really there is a need to maintain the current strategy with perhaps some adjustments. That strategy has three elements. First of all, you have to continue to develop the law enforcement and interdiction capacity of the Afghan counter-narcotics police and other such agencies. Perhaps most importantly, however, you have to develop alternative livelihood schemes. And that doesn't just mean giving alternative crops, such as wheat and so on, which aren't nearly as profitable as poppy and opium. But it means comprehensive rural development. That means building roads so farmers can get their product to market, rebuilding irrigation systems that were destroyed in the war, creating cold storage facilities, creating different facilities that could allow the Afghans to provide and deliver their goods to market.
And Mark, how possible is all of that?
Well, as I said, with everything dealing with the Afghan state-building process, what's needed is patience. And this is a process that's going to take 10, 15, perhaps 20 years.